Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Challenger Network News. I'm Brandon Bichler, partner at Elixirr. Today, I'm joined by Emma Burton, Senior Manager at PwC. Hi, Emma. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Brandon. How are you doing?
Thanks for joining us today. I'm doing well. And Fabiana Amiouni, Principal at Elixirr. Hey, Fabs. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you.
Good to see you. Today is the second episode in a three-part series we're doing this week on women in consulting. Frankly, we have a problem. There are simply too few women leaders in consulting. Week on week, we take on the toughest challenges our clients face, but we haven't been able to crack this problem in our own industry. So we decided we wanted to take that on. So if you haven't already seen it, we did one episode earlier in the week where we spoke with women in consulting at the starts of their career. Today, we're speaking to women who have been very successful in consulting, but they're also at the stage where they are faced with tough choices and challenges based on where they are in their personal lives, which we'll talk a little bit about. Tomorrow, we're speaking to women leaders at the partner level. And if you missed the live episode, you can always catch the replay later. So please do join in. And also, please do engage in the comments during the live session itself and afterwards. It will stay active in the chat. We recognize this is only the start of what we hope is a coordinated effort across the consulting profession to tackle this challenge and head on and make a real difference. So please do join in. We need everyone to take an active role. So welcome, both of you. Emma, it'd be great to start with you, maybe. You've had a really great career in consulting. It would be great to just hear a little bit about your experience, particularly as a female leader in consulting. Up to now, and then maybe even looking forward, what are some of the things you anticipate as a female in consulting?
Of course. So I've been in consulting now for just over 10 years, with 4 years based out in Asia. I think it's really interesting seeing the differences between the two markets. I think if I look back at my time in consulting, it has been predominantly been focused on men leading teams. I am starting to see quite a significant shift over the past, I'm just seeing Seb writing some comments. I have started to see a bit of a shift towards female leaders. And I think what's really interesting is just the mindset between having male kind of sponsors and mentors and female sponsors and mentors. And I think there's a real kind of significant kind of difference in the way that not just that you're managed, but you're kind of raised and nurtured through the firm. I think what I'm really focused on over the next, if I think 10 years ahead, is really how can I support bringing the next kind of generation up through consulting, but more personally starting to think through when is the right time to make some of the big life decisions that women need to make around having children, or for me, there is a lot around travel and kind of exploring the world. When's the right time to make some of those decisions? And that's something I'm kind of grappling with at the moment.
And that's super interesting to actually consciously think about those types of choices. When we talked a little bit earlier before this session, we talked about, do men have those same thoughts, and are they faced with those same choices? It's interesting to hear that perspective. Well, that's great. And Fabiana, maybe we can just hear a little bit about your background and where you are, because I think it is quite interesting to hear Emma's experience and kind of what she's thinking about versus your experience and what you've already experienced as a mother, which I'll reveal now.
Yes. So similar to Emma, I've been in consulting all of my career, so almost 11 years. And the reality for me has been that I never felt that I was disadvantaged as a woman in consulting, coming up through the ranks as it is. So I knew that obviously there were potentially fewer women in leadership roles than I would have liked to see, but I never really felt that impacted me. But I did notice a lot of this, the things that Natalie and Laura raised on the first episode around, conversations that are inclusive and, not being made to feel like an outsider a lot of the time, because the reality is that the environments we work in are very male dominated. But I never felt like it stopped me or so deterred my career. when that changed for me was when I became a mother. And then there was a drastic shift in sort of how I felt about my career, how I felt my career was perceived, how my ability to do my job in the way that I wanted to do my job. And I think that was a real turning point for me. And potentially when I really started to think about, well, when I look around me, are there, women and men, not just women, who are at similar life stages, who I, can see as role models? Do I want that life? Can I see myself making it work? And I don't think it's a question that's unique to women. For me, it's something that is very much so front and center for working parents who want to play an active role in their children's upbringing.
Do you agree, Emma? Do you kind of...
To be honest, I really like the way that you put it, that you've never felt disadvantaged kind of moving up through the firm. I think that's exactly, through consulting, that's exactly kind of how I felt. I've never felt hindered because of my gender. I do think, having seen a lot of my colleagues go through the same challenges of kind of motherhood, just that constant debate around prioritization and how do we make sure that consulting becomes a sustainable kind of job while still doing the very important role of being a mother or a father.
Yeah, and I think, one of the challenges for me around that debate, as Emma said, is a lot of the time you're just having it with yourself, and you don't feel like you can talk to anyone about it. And despite the fact that we have a small team at Elixirr, one that I'm proud to be part of, and I feel like I'm part of the family, and I feel like I should have been able to talk about it, but a lot of the times you don't feel like you can, because you're talking to men, and you feel like you're the only one having that conversation, so you feel guilty about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Emma, have you? I mean, obviously you're in a much larger firm. Do you think that having women who have been through that experience of managing, having children and taking care of them, whether they take time off or work through that time, or I'm sure every variation exists from my experience. Have you?
Absolutely. I think having those role models is key, and having seen people kind of go through that process. But I think there's also a role on the kind of male side to just be much more open about talking about the challenges, because I think there's a whole root of issues on that side. And I think having that open dialogue just creates a much more even kind of discussion or playing field to kind of explore what could be done differently, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. And we should start with right now
on
this show. No, I
what about you, Brandon?
I'll make a confession. You spend a lot of years in the industry. You work with men and male and female colleagues all the way through, and you think you understand the issues. Even this week, talking to some of the different female people and consultants in our firm, I've learned a tremendous amount. So I think that dialogue is the really honest and authentic and open dialogue is definitely, the very base thing we must do. That's interesting. Let's talk about one thing, because one of the things is there isn't this. Some people say, and this came up in our first episode as well, that consulting is a very flexible profession. You're not working, specifically 9 to 5. That you're not, operating a process. You can come in or out depending on. It's a more fluid profession. You're not always working for the same client, and I've heard conversations in the past. I've definitely been in conversations in the past where people think, well, that provides the flexibility that to allow women to basically craft their own balance of the work life and the family life. Is that a myth, or is there something in that? I'd really be interested in your opinions.
Fab, so why don't you go first, because I think you've probably got more hand-on experience, and then I can do some reflections from what I've seen.
Sure. So in my experience, on paper, yes, Brandon, it is all the things you described. And I think the nature of consulting in the fact that we do client-facing work, and the expectation is that, you know, we are delivering value quickly for our clients. Often we are on short-term engagements, and often clients feel that, you know, they are paying a lot of money to have us there to help them resolve their challenges. And so that means you are expected to be there, you are expected to deliver, you are expected to be flexible to what the client needs, and it's not the other way around. The client will not be flexible to what you need. That has been my experience. And, you know, the other side of it is the fact that you go from project to project, from account to account. That level of unpredictability also makes it very difficult to balance, you know, some of the certainty you need in your life as a parent. That's been the reality for me.
I would completely kind of agree with just the dynamic changes of consulting do make it a little bit harder to predict. You have these peaks and troughs, and it's quite hard to predict when the troughs are going to come sometimes. I do think firms, well, PwC anyway, and other firms have spent quite a bit of time just really investing in enabling kind of flexible working, whether it's going down to 4 days a week or 80% just overall. I think there's kind of a step change that needs to happen in terms of communicating it and making that kind of okay, and then almost you don't have to ask permission for it. It's almost just an embedded part of the culture that is allowed, and it's not going to hinder your progress. I think there's a little bit of kind of communication that we could be doing just across the industry to just say you can still do an amazing job while still having a bit of flexibility day to day.
Yeah. I think and then the other element for me is understanding what you need in place to support you, to allow you to be flexible, because the reality is in the roles that Emma and I are in now, we are often the people who are facing off to the client. We are the ones who are there, you know, if things are going well or if things are not going well, we are the ones who present, you know, who represent Elixirr, who represent PwC. So what needs to be in place to give us some of that flexibility when we need it? I think those need to be active conversations.
Yeah, because I mean, Fabiana, I know you've done partial working weeks at, you know, different points, and I remember talking to you, again, just being super openly, you had challenges even with that. And maybe it is just the expectation of the job. And it's almost like, okay, yeah, we have the policy, but does the practice actually follow the policy, right? You know?
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, Brandon, I reflected on that last night because, you know, I came back to work a year after I had my children. So it's been almost 2 years now. And I felt like I came back on a 3-day work week, but I felt like I was on the back foot from day one because I went onto an account that had already started. I was replacing a principal, and the principal was sold full time, but no one had the conversation with the client to say, well, you know, Tab is back. We're really excited to have her. She's one of our best principals. We're confident she can deliver the job for you, but please keep in mind that, you know, there are some days where she might be less available. No one had that conversation, and I didn't have a relationship with the client. And so I was on the back foot, and I didn't feel like I felt uncomfortable having those conversations. And that was the reality.
Understand. And you know, one of the things that we talked about before the show, and then I'm going to get to Emma's question, she just dropped us a good one, is another Emma, not you, Emma Burton. But one of the things we talked about is, well, okay, has kind of some of the behavioral changes and the expectations around travel with the pandemic, is that a potentially an opportunity for us to do something a little bit differently? Because one of the stressors in the past was certainly travel. Is there something where we can help, like you said, facilitate making part-time working or remote working easier? What do you think, Emma? Do you think there's an opportunity there? And then if yes, what is that opportunity?
I think there's definitely an opportunity. I'm sure a lot of other people would agree with me that working hours have slightly increased because of working from home. So I think whilst travel has obviously gone down, it's been replaced by other by more work essentially, or more kind of Zoom calls or discussions. And I think I think we need to think through it carefully and almost set a bit of a standard around kind of how we work. And it's because we are in consulting, we do have to work with our clients, and our clients may have different needs. And so it's a really hard kind of question and challenge. And so I don't have a full answer, but I do think there's the potential, but I think we need to really think through the practicalities of it, because I think we can all agree we've worked slightly longer hours given that since the start of the pandemic.
Yeah, I agree. But let's go to Emma Landman, who's just asked us a question. What big changes would make more women want to move into senior leadership roles and be able to live that reality and make it work? So we were thinking about answering this. What do you think consulting firms must do differently to really tackle this challenge? Fabiana, you want to go, or Emma, do you want to give it a try? Give it a stab?
Perhaps why don't you go first and then I'll jump in.
Oh, yeah, I was struggling with that one, really. I couldn't think of like one big change, although I know, things like Deloitte has just introduced a policy of offering staff a 4-week timeout of unpaid leave once a year in addition to their holiday allowance, which potentially aligns, for example, to their children's time off school. Mm-hmm. That's a huge thing, something that, for me would be absolutely massive.
Mm-hmm. I think what my point of view is going to be more sponsors and mentors, and I think more so probably sponsors, male or female, just bringing people up through the firm, and from a mentorship side, being that voice and that ear to basically coach you through some of the challenges, because I think all of us face different challenges, whatever the gender, and I think it's more to the point I raised at the start about that open discussion and open kind of collaboration on how to address some of these issues.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. There's nothing that will replace, looking across, like upwards, sideways, and going, yes, I see this working. Someone's telling me how it's going to work, and I know it can work. Yeah.
In fact, in the last episode, post episode, in the comments, somebody sent a link to I think it was a Harvard Business Review article about the importance of mentorship and sponsorship. And it was talking about how most women in industry are very well mentored, over-mentored, but under-sponsored. And that there's something about that quote that stuck with me. And to be honest, it prompted an action in my own thinking, like, what can I do more? How can I better sponsor, female talent in the organization? Really sponsor. It's not just coaching. It's actually taking accountability for careers and and their development. And we all do it, but frankly, that was something that made me reflect on my own leadership and something that I thought I need to do more of, frankly.
And I completely agree, and I feel like I have been very lucky to have kind of a small handful of sponsors within PwC, mainly males, and I don't think that has changed my opinion, but I think that might be where I'm at personally, and I think that might start to shift and be really looking for a different kind of perspective as I kind of progress.
Yeah.
You agree, Fabiana?
Yeah. The only thing I was going to add is I think that is hugely important, but then it's also those sponsors and those mentors, so taking it to the right next level, if you want to call it that, because sometimes you need sort of a broader team to make change happen. And Brandon, you and I might agree, but then I might need your support to get broader agreement to put things in place. I think that's what's missing sometimes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Being a true champion for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, unbelievably, these shows go fast. That's all the time we have for today. But this is, as I mentioned at the start of the show, this is just the start. This is just the start of a conversation. I want to encourage everyone to put comments down in the post. I see Ian's come in with a question, and we'll certainly answer that in the comments after. I want to encourage everyone that's watching this live or after the live show to put in comments and questions, and we'll stay active on the thread to keep going. Please continue the conversation and the debate. Please watch and engage in our final episode tomorrow when we talk to two partners female leaders in the consulting industry. And stay tuned, as we're planning to do much more on this topic, and we really want and need you to join in the debate. For now, I want to thank Emma and Fabiana for joining me, and I want to wish everyone a great rest of the day. Thanks again.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
all.